Hello and welcome to Season 4 of the Mind Body Medicine for Chronic Pain podcast. My name is Sean Hershey. I am a psychotherapist and I specialize in helping people heal from chronic pain using psychological and emotional modalities. Most people don't even know that's possible, but it is. Today we have a great guest, Saahil Shenoy, and we're talking about chronic pain in athletes, chronic pain in active young people who use their bodies, people who fear injuries, people who get injuries. It's a great discussion, and I'm sure many of you will find his healing journey very inspiring. It works for him. It can work for you. We talk about using the mind-body connection and using mind-body healing to heal from so many chronic pain issues, including chronic leg pain, chronic shoulder pain, chronic knee pain, chronic back pain, chronic neck pain, and chronic foot pain. Join us today as we take the journey from I can't even run anymore to I can. I can. Hell yeah. Welcome to Season 4. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Mind Body Medicine for Chronic Pain podcast. I am here today with Saahil Shenoy. Hi, Saahil.
Hey, Sean. Good to see you.
You too. Saahil and I met at the ATNS conference in Boulder, and here we are again, meeting online to talk more about mind-body stuff. So glad to be here.
Yeah, glad you had me on. I'm touched.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, why don't you start by introducing yourself a little bit, and then we'll get into your story and your involvement in this world. But why don't you just start with introducing yourself so listeners know who you are?
Yeah. So I'm originally like for most of my life, I had no idea about the mind body world. I for the longest time bought into the whole story that like pain means something structurally wrong with my body, as many doctors had told me and whatnot. And we'll definitely talk about this later on, but had a whole bunch of rituals and like predetermined things I would do every day for hours to be able to help me or give me the perception of being able to help me move. And I come from a very scientific background, so I don't very much subscribe to like the I would call it like the Western philosophy of medicine, where like to take painkillers to get rid of pain or take a medicine to like get rid of things and whatnot. And and so I've physics training and work in tech right now, so definitely not as much exposed to psychology or people in the psychological spheres and whatnot. So it was great to be able to attend the conference and get to meet you there. I don't
Yeah,
know if
yeah,
there's
yeah. No,
anything. Yeah.
I was just going to say, I thought it's funny because everybody's like a doctor or a therapist or a physical therapist. And you were like, not me, but this stuff is very important. So here I am.
Yeah. I would probably say I was the most skeptical about this whole thing. If you had told me this like maybe 3 years ago, I would have been like, yeah, that's great, but probably not for me, honestly. I'm fine the way I am.
Okay. Right. So the journey from a skeptic to coming to the full conference as, as a,
Yeah.
as a person who's like, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if you consider yourself in the field or not in the field, but coming to the conference, even if your profession is not related. But
Yeah.
why don't you kick us off with your story, wherever you want to start with, how chronic symptoms and chronic stuff has affected your life, wherever you want to start. Let's get into it.
Yeah. So let me think. So originally when I was a kid, like young, maybe before age 12 or something, I would just be able to move fine, work out fine. I mean, even then I didn't really work out, and that's a whole other story. But I eventually started martial arts. I was training in martial arts, really enjoying it, going through Taekwondo and whatnot. And then
Cool.
when there came a point where like I remember one of my knees started hurting, and I was like, huh, like this is strange. I've never experienced that before. Like it felt like it was chronically hurting. And I didn't do any stretches or anything like that. And then I had talked to my my parents, and they had said, "Oh, like why don't you, stretch it out to, help yourself? Maybe that'll do it." And so then I started stretching my legs after working out, and then like just doing one stretch, like maybe like a minute, and that was it. And then it went away, and I was like, "Oh, wow." And then in my brain, I started equating stretching equals no pain. And then eventually, as I kept going through martial arts and working out, different parts of my body started chronically hurting, like my shoulder, my back, my hips, like you name any part of my body, my feet, whatever. And then I would just do a different stretch with that and I would keep tacking on. And eventually, when I got like maybe 8 years in, I would just have this huge accumulation of stretching. I even added foam rolling, the foam roller thing, the cylindrical thing, and also the lacrosse ball for the getting out knots and stuff like that. It just would keep adding things, and it just in the back of my head, I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to keep doing this. I mean, I'm at a point in my life where I can maybe wake up earlier, do my workout, and then do all this like extra hour, both in the morning, both in the evening, and then like I'll be able to quote unquote move the next day in that sense. And so I found,
So I
yeah,
just want to butt in to clarify. So you're
yeah.
saying there was a point where you ended up with like about an hour long ritual of stretching and rolling
Mhm.
that you felt you really had to do every day, twice a day. Is that correct?
Yeah, for 2 hours
Yeah.
total. So 1 hour in the
Wow.
morning, 1 hour in the evening, and I felt if I did not do this, my body would just hurt, like, I would feel all this shoulder pain, I'd feel knee pain, back pain, neck pain, and just anything everywhere. And so I really felt this is an absolute necessity to do. And, then, yeah, so I'll mention this briefly. I met my wife who was a psychologist, and then she, when we first were initially dating, she was telling me like, "Oh, I'm starting to specialize in mind body stuff, or was specializing. I forget exactly the order of things." And then she mentioned like, "Why don't you try this out?" And when I heard that, I'm like, I heard it helped a bunch of her clients and stuff like that she sees, and then I was like, "Huh, I understand it works for them, but I really don't think it'll work for me. Like what I'm doing is helping me. Like that was my thought process. And so then I was still skeptical, but maybe she kept telling me about it. Like she didn't give up on me. She kept like, worming
Right.
worming my
Okay. And let me ask at that time,
yeah.
what were the symptoms that you had? You know, when she was like, I would encourage you to look at this. Like what was going on for you physically?
Yeah, so it was mostly like leg pain. It was like right shoulder chronic right shoulder pain, possibly some neck pain at times. And those are the main areas. There'd be some other pains, like maybe my feet. I have flat feet, so I had this whole story going that like I can't run. I have to do very low impact exercises for cardio, and I wouldn't even be able to walk like 2 miles in one day. I thought like walking a mile to where I live to a particular building and then walking back was too much. And like she would say, "Oh, like why don't you do that?" I would do that, and then I would say, "Okay, the next day I can't do anything. I have to take a rest day. Otherwise, like I'm done. I'm hosed. Like I'm not gonna be able to function very well." And so yeah, so that was all the stuff that was going on. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Got it. Got it. And just out of curiosity, like, were those narratives coming from like, do you remember? Was that coming from your experience? Like, because one time after I walked, I had symptoms, so therefore I can't walk. Was it coming from a doctor or a provider of some sort who said, like, you've got to take it easy, maybe because of your flat feet? Like, do you remember where that was coming from?
Yeah, so it's a combination of many things. One is definitely by experience. Like I guess like a lot of the pain areas. I mean, these are things like I'd read in books. These are things like I'd experienced and whatnot. And so that's one avenue. And then especially with my feet, I had seen many doctors. They're like, "Oh, you have really flat feet. You need to get very specialized shoes with orthotics, and like, they need to be in this particular way. You need to basically like." Spend an arm and a leg getting like highly specialized shoes and whatnot. And I believed all that because like I was like, oh, I guess it makes sense. My feet are like very different compared to other people's feet, because they tend to have arches and mine are just like have no arch, like completely all of it goes down on the ground when I step. And so I had
Well,
this,
and let me
yeah.
just say for people listening, sounds like a normal abnormality to me. Like we've all got something weird about our bodies, and there's yours. Some of us have many weird things about our bodies.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so, so like, yeah, basically, I was told like, I heard these stories like, in the army. Okay, again, I don't know if this is true, so don't quote me on this. These are things that contributed to my the mental model out of my feet in particular. Like I heard, oh, like if you have flat feet, they won't let you like march in the army, or maybe they take that into consideration. If you were drafted, you'd be put in like a different sort of position or something. Again, that whether that's true or not, that contributed to my like story of like, oh, there's something definitively wrong with my feet. Like it is,
Right.
yeah, something
Right.
is broken. So
Well, no,
yeah.
that's such a good point. I mean, so many people who have chronic pain and who are listening to this podcast have probably been told in some
Mhm,
way, like you are a second rate human being, or in
mhm,
some way, like your body is in some way second rate. And
mhm,
so I see that in what you're saying. Like,
mhm.
if I were to be in the military, I couldn't like I couldn't do it. I would be like B rank, or I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I know nothing about it, but it's like I'd
Yeah,
be in the
same.
back. I'd be, but to think like something's physically wrong with me, like
Mhm.
I'm defective. That's yeah. That's powerful. Now we know this is not true,
Yeah.
but at the time you didn't know that. Let me just say one more thing before we keep going with the
Yeah,
story.
yeah.
Something that something that I want to pull out of what you're saying that I think will be helpful to people listening is you're saying that sometimes like you believed that like you shouldn't walk because sometimes when you did walk you would have symptoms later
Yeah.
that day or the next day. Is that okay?
Yeah.
So I want people listening to like take that in. Yes, that can totally happen.
Mhm,
And what I like to tell people is to question your triggers.
mhm,
Because when you're thinking about your triggers only physically,
mhm,
you think like, well, obviously I'm in pain because of the walk I did yesterday or because of the workout I did yesterday or
mhm,
whatever. But question your triggers. Because when you question your triggers, I hope people are listening to this. When you question your triggers and you think psychologically rather than thinking physically, it opens up a whole world of, oh, maybe it wasn't the walk that triggered this. Maybe it was all the emotions I'm feeling. Maybe it was all the emotions I'm not feeling. Like there's
mhm,
so many psychological triggers obviously to chronic pain. That's like the basic TMS model. And please remember to bear those in mind. And your story is a great example of that.
mhm.
But yes, go on. So you've got the 2 hour long stretching ritual.
Yeah.
You've got all these different pains. Then what?
Yeah, and then I would, I'd put all these like creams on my back, like even before going to bed. I would do Epsom salt baths for my legs and stuff, and it just kept like growing to this level where at some point I was like something maybe has got to change, but wasn't able to quite articulate that because I felt like really trapped. It's like I want this to be gone, and then, but at the same time, like, I need all this stuff to like function. Otherwise, my life is over, kind of like a feeling. Cause movement is extremely important to me. Like, if I cannot work out every day or like couldn't move the way I wanted to move it, I don't know. I feel this like sadness, this internal sadness that like this is what I want to do, but I feel like I'm restricted from actually doing what I want to do. Which has to
Totally.
included
Yeah.
running as well. Like running, I love doing, but I had a lot of fear for a really long time that my legs are just gonna break, like, gone, like,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
I'm gonna be in a wheelchair for the, like, rest of my life, kind of a feeling, or, like, maybe, I'm just not gonna be able to, like, function properly. That it's just very catastrophic kind of thinking in some sense. So,
Yeah.
anyway,
It's
so
horrifying.
yeah, so as I was saying, my wife, I mean, at that time, I was dating her, she wasn't my wife, but that was my wife.
Mm.
She kept like weaving in, and she was also really passionate on mind body stuff. So it was a twofold purpose of like her loving to talk about it, and I was receptive to hearing about it. It wasn't, I was like not like, oh, this is complete BS. Like, don't waste my time. I was like interested to hear like other people's experiences. Didn't think it applied to me, so she just kept weaving that into conversations, stuff like that. And then I slowly started like, started marinating in my head for a bit of time, and then I noticed something really interesting that we went to Hawaii a while back, and I walked a lot there, like a lot. And I noticed like I didn't, and of course I can't bring my whole setup that I have here to Hawaii. Like the environment we were in was like, I typically I like to stretch because I lay on the ground and stretch. I have like a carpet on the ground, and so it's very soft. There was no carpet at all. It was like very like hardwood floor and stuff. So I would do only the stretches that I could like do standing up and all that stuff. And I found like, you know, I'm not really feeling as much pain. Or some days I just
Mhm.
just would forget to stretch, like we just wouldn't have time. And then I realized like, huh, I feel fine. Like this is interesting. Why is it when I'm at home in like a familiar location, do I need to do all of this? But when I'm on vacation, I don't feel like the same level of pain, or I don't like maybe no pain at all. Maybe like I'm totally fine. And that got me really thinking.
Classic TMS. Yes, the
Yeah.
classic TMS, go on vacation and the symptoms go away. And of course that doesn't happen for everyone, but
Yeah.
that happens for as you know, obviously that happens for a lot
Mhm,
of people where you're on vacation and your symptoms change. Your symptoms are different. Your
mhm,
symptoms are way less. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. And isn't that funny that you're
mhm,
in your head you had it all built up like, well, I have to do this 2-hour long ritual. And then when you weren't doing it,
mhm.
that was when things were better.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Especially like the so maybe not the stretching part wasn't as much, but the cream part, like I wouldn't bring the creams with me because TSA regulations and all that stuff and
Totally.
and whatnot. So I wouldn't bring that with me. And I realized like, wait, I don't need to use creams there. And I actually feel better. Like, I don't feel the pain every day. Like, I don't wake up and I'm like, "Oh, my back. Oh, my neck," like, that kind of stuff. And I'm sleeping on a bed that's different than my regular bed, which I'm not familiar with. Not saying my bed is, like, really bad or anything. Like, in fact, the hotel or Airbnb beds was worse because 'cause I'm, like, sinking in and, like, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would get up and I'm like, yeah, I feel a little bit of stiffness, but like it's not like the pain that I feel like, when I wake up every day back at home and whatnot. So then that got me to really think like, huh, maybe I don't actually need creams. Maybe I still need stretching, but I don't think I
Sure.
need the creams and stuff like that. So I just one day said, you know what, I'm just gonna stop using creams and just stop
Mm.
all this like extra
Mhm.
stuff being on top of the stretching.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's like we're, like, deep in the pit, but you're taking one step out.
Yeah. Yeah, because I knew like, at that time, I didn't feel comfortable, completely removing stretching, and so then I,
Sure,
like,
sure, sure.
yeah, and then, not this past year, but the year before that, I met a coach who my wife introduced me to, who specialize actually oh, yeah, let me actually go to the conference, and that'll kind of illuminate further. So not this past year's conference, but the one before that was my very first time going to an ATNS. At that time, I believe it was called PPDA.
Yeah, yeah,
Forget
yeah.
what I forget what all the acronyms stand for, but
Yeah,
anyways,
PPDA was the Psychophysiologic Disorder Association, I wanna say.
yeah,
ATNS is the current name, which is
yes,
Association for the Treatment of Neuroplastic Symptoms. I know you know that, but for
yeah,
people listening, so you
yeah.
know.
Now I know the people listening know this.
Yeah, we're all on the same page now. But yes, go on.
Yeah, so I went there and I looked at the talks, and there was one talk that really interested me. It was by a guy named Charlie Merrill, and he was talking about how athletes and mind body kind of like how those two interplay with each other. Because the way my wife was describing it to me, she doesn't describe from an athletic context, and so to me I was kind of like, is it gonna really apply to me that much? Like, these are people like, the people she was describing are like I guess it's kind of the analogy, like, they're like, what they were seeing her for wouldn't be relatable to me personally, because that's not, like, the struggle I'm going through. The struggle that I'm going through with mind body stuff, or at that time didn't know it was mind body stuff, was, like, it was blocking me from pursuing athletic endeavors. So, I didn't hear, like, that lens of how mind body helps with athletes. Like, do athletes actually, like, deal with mind body stuff? And the answer is, of course, yes, but, like, I didn't know at the time. I mean, I would hear about like football players who have all these different therapies they go through, like cryogenic therapy, hyperbaric oxygen, the whole list goes on. And I thought, like, oh, maybe if I become wealthy enough one day, I could like get all this like, stuff and like use that to help me recover. Cause I don't know
Right.
how do they deal with all their stuff. And I would even talk to friends and ask them like, oh, how much stretching do you do like after work? And they'd be like 15 minutes or something. I'm like, whoa, or no stretching at all. And I'm just like, how do they do that? Like, I have no idea. But anyway, so
Well,
yeah,
actually, let's sit with that for a minute because I'm
yeah,
sure people listening relate to that. What did you think was wrong with you? Like in your mindset, like
uh,
what did you think at the time? Like, did you like if I had the money to do the whatever cryogenic
yeah.
chamber, I don't even know what half that stuff is. Like, what did you think needed to be fixed? Or did you even have any thought about it?
I guess like I thought maybe there was something like structurally broken in my body, like maybe some micro tears, inflammation, things like that. Like I went to physical therapy many, many times. And
Mhm.
I don't know about you, but and I probably many people also, but I don't necessarily feel I was alone in this, but I don't enjoy physical therapy exercises like taking, like a
Miserable,
band on like a, attached to a wall and like, doing like this motion with your arm, like,
miserable.
yeah,
I
or like
know
doing
it's
all
so
these,
pointless.
yeah,
So and I am also one who I like to
yeah,
work out. I like to exercise. Physical therapy
yeah,
exercises are so pointless. Or at
yeah.
least they've always felt that way to me. Like the tiniest little dumb movements I'm like, don't make it's yeah, miserable
Yeah, yeah, it's just and then they also tell you gotta do it not only do you have to do it there, you have to do it at home and, like,
every
do it
day.
consistently, yeah, every day, and I'm just like, "Oh, I guess I'm gonna take my medicine." It just felt like taking medicine, honestly. No, I don't think anyone
Yeah.
enjoys taking medicine.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, no, it's such a downer, especially if it's not working. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's miserable. But okay, so you went to Charlie Merrill's talk and,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
what happened
And
there?
it really touched me because what he was describing resonated. I mean, I don't remember the exact details of the talk, but I remember emotionally feeling like, wow, this hits differently as as the younger generation says. And yeah, and in particular, I just felt like very emotional about the whole conversation, about the whole talk, because it was talking about a lot of stuff that I had gone through and hadn't been able to articulate, and how athletes like view themselves, what they like emotionally go through and stuff. And then I like was really thinking like, huh, if he's telling me, somebody who's as experienced as he is, that like athletes have used mind body stuff to really help them get over chronic pain, that's when like the light switch went off, that maybe, just still not fully convinced, like maybe they have something I don't, maybe there's something like inherently like broken about myself, that this won't work for me, or may not work as well, but that's still that thought, maybe this could work for me. And so I talked with him. I talked with a whole bunch of people in the conference, and just asked them questions like, just like about like like stretching and stuff like that, or like, how like, if you do you work with flat-footed athletes? Do you work with, like, what are all the things, and like, do you worry as much about shoes? Because shoes, still today, to this day, I hate buying shoes because it's such, I have to, just to get a shoe that like fits my foot right, it's a huge headache. I really hate it.
Mm.
So just understanding like, does the shoe, I mean, to a certain degree, the shoe matters. If it's like too small or too large, maybe it doesn't have the effect, but within reason, like, does it matter as much? And they're just like, no, it's fine. Like, you don't have to stretch. You can, you don't have to, really, it's all like, you're telling me about like how trying to really explain like change my notion of how pain manifests in the body, in some sense, like, rather than it being
Mhm.
like, oh, something's structurally wrong, pain is generated by the brain or by the mind, whatever form of philosophy you
Right,
subscribe to. So
right, right,
um
right.
yeah, and so then I met this person my wife introduced me to, she thought would be very helpful. And then I just did coaching with him for like, I think 2.5 months. And that completely changed my perspective. And so like, initially started with like coming in with like I guess some semblance of curiosity, where you explore like, let's just see what happens if you do the same activity, but you just remove, maybe two stretches from your routine. You don't remove everything, just tiny bit, just remove one thing, or maybe decrease the amount of time that you hold each stretch for, and then eventually
Mhm.
like see what happens. And I started doing that because if I removed all stretches day one, my mind would just break. Like it would just not bode
Hmm.
well. And
Hmm.
now I realize like more than me needing stretches, it was more of that my mind felt I needed stretches. So essentially I started like decreasing the amount of stretching. And then it got to the point where like now after like several months of doing this, I do zero stretches, no stretching, no foam rolling, nothing. Like I just go into the gym. I of course my warm up is like I don't do full weights like starting off. I do very lightweight like body weight exercises and stuff like that to really warm myself up because I don't want to get injured. But other than that, I use the exercise itself as like a form of stretching and warming up and use the
Hmm.
movement and whatnot. And that saves me a whole bunch of time. I've gotten so much fat time back in my day now.
I bet. I bet. And I'm so glad you're talking about this because I feel like this really is a mind body um problem that not a lot of people talk. Well, I feel like it's just not highlighted. Like a
Mhm,
lot of my clients have told stories where like I mean, all of the things take so much time. And I think back on my own life, like when my stomach was really bad, I had a whole list of like these. I had a list on my phone of like these are all the things that I do in a
mhm.
day. Like, and I would constantly be changing it. It was like, well, 2 months ago I was taking like these herbs and these bitters and doing this like massage on my stomach, and now okay, delete that, delete that. Now I'm doing all this stuff, and like we'll see if this combination works. And it was just like a grueling schedule. And a lot of people have that, but I feel like it's often like not highlighted in conversations about mind body stuff that like this shit takes so much time. Like it takes so much energy and so much time out of your life. And just it like diverts you out of your own life. And certainly it diverts you away from feeling your emotions because it's like here you are obsessing over
Yeah.
like, what stretches should I do versus being like what's actually going on. But like, yeah, I'm glad you're shedding light on this because I'm sure a lot of people relate to this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then what I found, okay, so I'm confident saying this won't work for everybody, but what I found, what worked for me in terms of like implementing some form of therapy combined with mind body was IFS, internal family systems. I don't know if
Yeah,
your viewers
same
are
here.
as familiar with that form of therapy or.
Some are, some maybe are not, but yeah, internal family systems. Talk to us. Yeah, talk to us about your experience with that.
Yeah, so okay, I don't know the strict definition of it, but my experience of it is that like anytime I feel a certain body part of mine hurting, I don't necessarily look. I mean, yes, there are the physical symptoms like tightness or just like it feels like something got pulled or it feels like, some tremors or I don't know, things like maybe it's spasming a little bit or whatever, mostly around tightness and stuff like that. I go to that part of my body and I look beyond the physical symptoms to look at like emotionally, what is that part feeling? So sometimes like that part of my body might be feeling sad, like very tired, like or it might be feeling very tight, like it's scared, like I don't want to let go. Like if I let go, something is going to happen. This especially happens with like, oh, I forgot to mention now I can run. Like I have no issues anymore with running and whatnot. But it would happen like when I'm walking because I have to walk to a certain area where I can like do a longer run without needing to be stopped by traffic lights and stuff. So as I'm walking to the area, sometimes I'll feel like my knee is like hurting. It feels very tight. Like each step, it's very scared. Like my leg feels very scared to take a step. And I'll tune in and I'll like have a conversation with it and I'll extend a lot of love and compassion. And then I'll find some of the time that pain just goes away. Or sometimes I'll do the complete opposite where I'll go to that part and say, hey, can you increase the pain? Like, let's make the pain even more. Like, bring it
Hmm.
on. And then it just goes down. And then
Hmm.
sometimes I'll like focus on my other leg and eventually it'll go away. Or sometimes I'll just be like, I guess I'm feeling pain. That's okay. It'll
Hmm.
go eventually. And it eventually does in that sense. Or I'll like say, okay, let's run for like 30 seconds and we'll take a break and see how we feel. And then and I find I can actually run way longer than 30 seconds. Just that initial kind of like grace of like you can back out anytime you want. You're not stuck doing this activity if you don't want to do it or if you can't do it, for instance. And same with lifting too. Like sometimes I'll feel like certain parts of my body are hurting and I'll like say, okay, let's just do like 1 or 2 reps and then see how we feel. If we feel we can do more, we'll do more. If you feel like you can't do it, put the weight down and do something else. So that's another sort of avenue where that kind of comes up. So there's a lot of like so the reason internal family systems comes in is because that part of myself feels like it's its own kind of being in some sense. Like I have no real control over it. I can't like will it to feel a different emotion. I can have a conversation with it and be like, hey, like I'm here for you if you need anything or whatnot. It's kind of like you have different parts of yourself that have different functions and stuff like that. And I don't follow that model exactly, but I kind of see like whenever I feel pain in any body part, I don't think of the physical symptoms immediately. I think of like, what emotion am I feeling that's behind that pain? Think of it kind of like a coin. There's like pain on one side, which is the physical component. And then there's the emotional component on the other side, which is like, what emotion am I feeling? In actuality, I feel those two are actually one and the same. I'm using that as kind of an analogy, but I feel pain, much like emotions, are just sensations in the body that are interpreted by the brain in a particular way. And so, yeah, so that's sort of how I kind of see it in some sense.
Yeah, no, it's that's so awesome to hear, how like a radical mindset shift around
Mm,
pain has helped you so profoundly and helped
mhm.
eliminate so many symptoms. And the fact that you're saying like you can run now, I mean,
Yeah,
that's awesome. That's really
yeah,
awesome. And I'll just say for people listening, internal family systems was developed by a therapist who was a family therapist, and so
mm,
he was trained in working with like the mom, the dad, the children, the extended family members. And in family therapy, different family members take on different roles. And
mhm,
often, like, one person's role will be like they're the identified patient. It's like we're in family therapy because of the teenager
mhm,
would be a common one. Or, we're in family therapy because of I mean, it could be anyone, but like the teenager is just such a common example. And when you get into the family work, what you find is like the teenager is the identified patient, quote unquote, which is similar to like the pain is the identified patient. But when you zoom out and look at the whole system, it's like there are many parts that are all fully legitimate. There are
mhm,
no bad parts. And all these parts are contributing in some way to the problem. And all these parts can be part of the solution.
mhm,
And internal family systems therapy is about treating the self as though all the parts of the family are existing
mhm.
inside the self. And a lot of people find this incredibly helpful. I just
Yeah.
think there's a book called No Bad Parts. I think even
Mm,
just that mantra, no bad parts, that is so helpful for me
yeah.
because I like to think like, oh, like my negative thoughts about this, or like my negative thoughts about myself, or like, certainly pain. I'm like, all that stuff is bad and I don't like it. But then I'm like, remember, no bad parts. It's like this stuff is here for a reason. Like it's here to tell me something. It's here because like emotionally I need to feel something. Maybe I need to grow. Like these parts are all here for a reason, and there are no bad parts. So it's so cool to hear about how IFS has been so helpful to you. Anything else that you would want to say about that, or for the benefit of people listening?
Yeah, there was a thought that came to mind, and I was I guess I heard from my coach that apparently I was the only one he tried IFS on because it doesn't work well with some other people, but mostly like I think from his experience he finds that it works well with people who like tend to have a rich kind of inner world who can like imagine things, imagine parts as like other entities within yourself, and like kind of like sense that like, oh, it's a different part. Some people who tune into themselves don't necessarily like can't necessarily visualize or like have that kind of mental model, which is totally fine. There are other things, I guess. That was the only thing I heard him say about that, which yeah. So yeah, I would say that. And then I also found that like sometimes resolving certain other emotional things that were going on in my life. Maybe I was like angry at somebody, or there was some like a cloud hanging over my head. Really resolving that, which felt completely unconnected to any pain I was feeling, actually helped with the pain itself. So I would say a lot of things that I didn't think were related to pain actually were related to pain.
Yeah. It's isn't it shocking how kind of big it is? Like,
Yeah.
the more I do this for myself and with other people, the more I'm like, wow, this applies to a lot of
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, I want to go back to the athlete thing. I mean, it's
Yes.
it's cool to hear that perspective and to know that hearing Charlie Merrill talk specifically about athletes. For people who don't know, Charlie Merrill he's a physical therapist, right?
Like,
I think
I
so.
feel hesitant to say things. I actually don't fully know his
Okay, okay,
background. Yeah, yeah.
okay. I believe Charlie Merrill is a physical therapist,
Mm.
and he's a big, name in the mind body field.
Yeah.
And to hear you say that connection was so important to you, talk to us about that.
Mhm.
Give us the athlete connection.
Yeah, so there was, like, this was I think this happened maybe either right before COVID or during the time of COVID, the lockdowns and whatnot. I had fallen down some stairs and, like, luckily, it could have been a way, way worse, but I remember, I had some, back pain and stuff like that and whatnot, and then I was feeling chronic shoulder pain, like, I had been lifting for a while, and then eventually I couldn't do bench press because it would just feel like pinching on my right shoulder, and I'm like, "How do I make that go away?" Like, it's just always there, like, it's just it comes and goes sort of a thing. And I had to even take like a roller bag for my work bag instead of like using a normal backpack or, things like whatever I could do. And that too mostly hold with my left arm. And so, yeah, so then I kind of just stopped doing all the physical activity I was doing, just any calisthenics, lifting, all that stuff. And I would just sort of walk and I would just do only walking. Like there was no other activity that I was really doing. And yeah, it kind of felt like, it felt like one of those things where I felt like I was not that I felt like I could do more, but I felt like yeah, I'm living a restricted life and I'm learning to live within my means in some sense. Like it felt kind of like that. And so I was just doing walking and then eventually I was seeing another coach who was also a physical therapist who was helping me build up strength and stuff like that. And then I would just figure out, oh, I could only work out certain days of the week and that too maybe 2 days a week or 3 days a week, and the other 4 days I'd take rest, or I can, shorten my workouts on, each day and maybe work out 4 days a week, that sort of stuff, rotate between things, and even, walking, a mile and mile back itself I would consider to be like a workout within itself. And so yeah, so there was extremely limited activity that I could do, and just yeah, just very restrictive. Like, oh, if I do these things, I'm not going to be able to work out the next day because I'm going to be just
Right, right, right,
yeah,
right, right. And you were talking about like the emotions that
mhm,
athletes go through, and we love to talk about emotions on this podcast. So
mhm,
give us a taste of that. Like
mhm.
what did Charlie talk about, or what did you really relate to in terms of the connection to the emotions and mind body stuff for athletes?
Yeah, it's difficult for me to recall the exact specifics, but I would say maybe the part I was resonating with is it just felt like for many years you tell yourself this story that I can only do this, I can only restrict myself. And then you hear somebody else who has worked with many people who of course don't have the same exact thing you do, but have similar restrictions on oh, my my body doesn't work in this particular way or I feel pain in this way and stuff like that. And hearing how this work has really helped them break through that. And we can discuss
Yeah.
what the word breakthrough means in a moment because it's very different than if I talk to somebody else, they may have a different conception of it. But effectively break through that. And in the sense, I feel the part that was really really resonating for me was having I guess this sense of hope that was restored back when it had been gone for so long of oh I'm just going to be this way forever, that's just how it's always going to be. I have to again live within my means in some sense, there's no mobility in terms of movement that mobility in the exertion of movement that I can do, for instance. And so I would felt very much like trapped for a very long time. And then here's somebody who's talking about how he's helped other people get out of those same places that I felt I was in. And hearing that like he could do that, it just gave me this sense of like hope of like, wow, I've like wanted something like that. I wasn't able to quite articulate, but when I heard it, I was like, yes, like I've wanted that for so long, like so long. Can I actually do it? And then hearing and then talking to other people in the conference as well. It's very emotional, extremely emotional. Like of just having that hope restored. So that's sort of how I would describe it.
That is really powerful, and I
Uh,
totally know what you mean. I mean, how what an amazing message to
mm,
think, like, you can go further, run faster, run at all, lift more,
mm,
do more, move more, bend more, like, you live more, you know what I
mm.
mean? It's like you like, your life can be so much bigger, and, 'cause so many of us with chronic issues end up in the place where we think like, okay, this is life now.
Yeah.
There's no way out." Um, when you say breakthrough, what talk to us. What do you mean? What do you mean by breakthrough?
Yeah, yeah. So originally I thought like my conception of dealing with pain was eventually like there's some people who I talk to are like, "Oh, you know, I don't stretch or maybe I do 15 minutes of stretching," or people who I perceive to be like physically like better. Maybe they have better genetics, maybe they have like something they're doing that I don't know, or I don't know why they're able to get away with doing such like little amount of what I call maintenance on like you know, recovery and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And I was thinking maybe they just feel less pain. Like maybe it's just maybe they don't like feel any pain, but I am more sensitive to pain and stuff like that. And so when I talk about breaking through, it's not that like pain, there won't be any pain. In fact, I actually, upon doing this work, see pain as like a very necessary thing because I see it as your brain's way of telling that it cares about you. If it didn't give you any pain, it would, you know, then your brain just doesn't care about you. So,
Yeah.
so like,
Yeah.
yes. So more than like getting rid of pain, it's not even learning to like live with the pain in the sense of like, oh, the pain is like my bounding box of like the house I'm in and I can't ever leave the house or anything like that. It's just more of like a signal from your brain, like, hey, we should watch out. Is this something I should be worried about kind of a thing? Or like what like yeah, like I'm worried that something is going on here. Like and then, you know, being the, you know, having a higher level of consciousness that we do, we can come in and say, like, oh no, you know, it's like we're safe. We're totally safe. That's actually been like the one thing that's really helped me is the words of letting my brain know, like 3 words, I am safe. Like letting my brain know that I am safe, you know, it's gonna be fine. Even if I feel pain like an hour or next day, I'm gonna be fine. Even if I like, for instance, you know, in the past when I would like bump my knee or bump my elbow or bump some part of my body on like on something that's really hard, or even slamming the door. Actually, recently I accidentally had a door slammed on my finger. Luckily it wasn't like the worst thing, but I just was like freaking out. And then with all this mind body training, I was like, yeah, I'll ice it. I mean, yeah, it sucks right now, but yeah, I'll be okay. It'll be okay. Like I just feel most of my reaction of like freaking out is it's just freaking out. It's not that my finger is broken. It's not that I can't move. I don't need to go to the emergency room or anything like that. And I'll be totally fine. So it's mostly the reassurance that like, yeah, you might feel pain now and it might suck, but you'll be fine. Like it's not like life ending or life changing or damaging. It's not like both your legs got chopped off or, you know, something like that. So yeah, yeah. That's kind of in some sense like it's what I call like freedom. And yeah, we can definitely tie more to that word choice because I know it's a very loaded word, but I view like really embracing mind body as freedom itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Let's great segue. Let's talk about that. I don't know if you know this. We I just on this podcast did a whole episode called "What Does Freedom Mean When You Have Chronic Pain?" So let's keep the conversation going. Yeah,
Oh, I did
talk about
not.
freedom.
I didn't know that. Yeah. So like freedom. So it's kind of interesting where in some sense like let me think how to describe this. Yeah. So there are two concepts that I hold in this conversation. One is like liberty, and the other one's freedom. I feel like I was originally approaching liberty, which means like I am separate from my body. I can do whatever I want. If my body is like paining, I'll just like, yeah, I'll put that as a restriction. I'll keep that to the side and I'll just do whatever I want within that without actually acknowledging what is going on in my body in that sense, or like what is going on within me. I classify freedom as like working within like what I have in terms of like how my body works at an emotional level, being able to address that, being able to communicate that. I'm able to move more freely within that sort of framework. So I guess the analogy I would kind of give, I can maybe figure out how it applies is this is actually the best way I've heard describing liberty and freedom. So if you're driving a car on the freeway, let's say, and you embody like true liberty, like I can do whatever I want, and you just decide I'm going to drive on the other side of the road, you're not going to be free at all. You can do whatever you
You're
want.
gonna be dead.
Yeah, you're gonna be dead. You're gonna be moving around. It's gonna be very anxiety provoking. So I kind of feel
Yeah.
like if you don't really acknowledge what's going on in your body, you sort of just say, "Oh, like there's pain. It's physical, purely physical." I'm just going to ignore it. I'm going to either push through it or I'm going to like greatly restrict my life without addressing it. It's kind of to me like driving on the other side of the road, essentially, where, and the symptoms that you have can impact other people in your life as well. Like, especially if you have like, certain things you're restricted in doing. Let's say you have like a family member who really loves to hike, for instance, and maybe you have these stories of like, I can't hike because of all these things. I'm not saying that as like a shaming tool. I'm just saying like, there are impacts it does have to other people in your life and whatnot. So versus when you go on the freedom side of things, you are driving on the correct side of the road. You are restricted in that sense of like, you can't drive on the other side of the road, but within that, you now are more free or are more at peace in some sense. Kind of view freedom and peace as like very correlated and connected to each other. And so that's sort of how I kind of describe it in some sense, where when you really acknowledge what's going on in your body and you kind of understand sort of the flow of your body of how emotions arise, how they fall, how different emotions come up, different pains can come up for no reason at all. Like maybe you didn't do anything. Sometimes what I think like if if my back hurts, it's a weird thought I go to because I heard this from, I forgot who it was, but somebody at the conference told me this is like, like I asked him, "Oh, my back's hurting." Like, and he said, "Did somebody take a baseball bat to your back and hit you?" And I'm like, "No." Like, he's like, "Okay, you're probably fine then." So
That's great. That's great. That's a good one.
yeah, so it's like I didn't go through any high impact. It's not like I, was like jumping around a lot. I didn't like even if I was jumping around a lot. I learned it takes a lot for you to experience like severe tissue damage. Like it's much higher than what people think it is. And so I just think a lot like, yeah, I didn't feel like I did anything super high impact. Maybe I'm just feeling really tense and like that could be indicative of something. So those are sort of the
Totally.
kinds of things I have. Um, yeah, yeah. Yeah. There are more components to liberty and freedom that I could talk about, but I don't know how much we want to go into it.
Let's go a little more into it. Wait, well, let me say, like one thing that I'm hearing there is like, it sounds like one of the differences you're pointing to is like working with
Hmm.
reality versus like working against reality. Like
Yeah,
the idea of liberty being like, I'm free to do whatever the hell I quote
mhm,
unquote want,
yeah,
um, is very different than like allowing whatever it is inside you that
mhm,
exists to be free.
mhm,
That's kind of something that I'm hearing, and that's
yeah.
but yeah, say more
Yeah,
about.
yeah. So I have also like a spiritual notion. I'm agnostic, so I'm not like super religious. Used to be more atheist, but now kind of more agnostic in some sense. And like, whether you have a notion of God, universe, nature, whatever, there's like some sort of like realm of existence that we're in, and there's sort of a flow of how things happen. And like your body, I imagine, at least in my conception of the body, of like it has this like similar kind of flow to it. And in some sense, if you like don't understand that or you try to go against that, it's
Yes.
just not gonna work. It's just not gonna work at all.
Yes. So real. So
Yeah.
real.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah. And
Yeah.
so I kind of think of like for instance, like even beyond just pain, like living a joyful existence. There are certain things that exist beyond yourself that like you're drawn to particular things, like say music, like you're drawn to being a musician, you're drawn to being a therapist, you're drawn to being like, doing this type of work, or maybe you're like very family oriented, like that's the only thing that really matters to you at the end of the day. You don't really care about work. And there are many things each of us are drawn to. And if I asked you why are you drawn to that, you couldn't really tell me why. Like there's no reason.
Right.
I am like that. That's
Right.
it gives me joy to like do that. I feel like closer to my true authentic sense of self. And you could say maybe that makes you feel closer to nature, God, universe, whatever, depending on your belief system and whatnot. And I think of that similar to like when I'm doing mind body stuff, there is this like, nature, God, universe given body that I have that has like its own sort of whims and like things and needs to also be addressed during the process. And it kind of feels like I'm communicating with like a truer, authentic version of myself or, part of nature when I do that. And I'm addressing that part and learning how to work within that. And so that's kind of sort of how I think about like experiencing freedom versus liberty is like, I am completely separate from nature. I have this mind body duality to the max. Like my body is only meant to serve me, sort of a thing, like very subservient kind of mentality. And that just, I don't know if that works for some people, but that just that doesn't work for me at all. Like, personally
Yeah, well,
speaking,
right. No, totally. Right. This idea that like human intelligence can control and dominate the natural world. It's like
Mm,
it's not like that. Like we
yeah,
are part of the
yeah.
natural world. Our bodies are part of the natural world. Like we can't control it and dominate it. It controls and dominates us. I love what you're saying. I mean,
Mm,
so much of like the recovery stuff you're talking about. I see what we always talk about on this podcast is recovery has three parts.
mm,
First, the psychological work, which I absolutely hear you talking about in teaching your brain and your nervous system that's like it is safe to feel sensations in your
mhm,
body. Number two, the emotional work, teaching your brain and your nervous system that like it is safe to have to have emotions.
yeah.
And I hear it, as you're talking about IFS and tuning into parts of your body and asking like, what are you feeling? I mean, right, like getting into the emotions. And then number three that we talk about on this podcast is to patiently attuning to your true self, which
Mhm,
is so in line with the way you're defining freedom. And I've never thought of it in that
uh,
way, but it's so cool to me that something that I've said on this podcast before is that like most people, well, the people who are doing mind body work and getting good results are all doing a slightly different version of the same basic principles because it
mm,
really, as much as it is true that like different things are necessary for different people, that's absolutely true. When you like boil it down to the foundation, it's like we all need the same basic things because
mm,
healing from chronic pain is a slightly different journey for everyone, but it we all have bodies, we all have
mm,
nervous systems. It's going to follow a similar pattern for all of us. So I love that the what you're saying and the words you're using really feel to me as just
mm.
like slightly different versions of like what we talk about all the time. So
Yeah.
it's awesome to hear it. Any other tips or anything that you would like to share with people that have really been helpful for you?
Yeah, I guess one thing I've noticed, actually one thing that was kind of coming up as we were talking was one thought I had that was recurring is like I was thinking a lot about like early humans and like did they feel chronic pain because like they didn't have foam rollers, they didn't have stretching, they had to like constantly keep moving, doing very physically demanding things and I wonder like what their sense of chronic pain was and like why chronic pain, I guess, like, is it that it wasn't, like, as recorded? Did they not have time to acknowledge it? Or maybe they were more in tuned with emotions, so they were kind of, like, in more sense of being versus today where we can, like, have more, I guess, leisure time to stuff down emotions and whatnot, as opposed to, like, very very early on. So it's just thinking a lot about that, like, throughout this whole journey of, like, especially, like what is the difference between like myself right now versus like my ancestors who probably didn't do any of this stuff, like
Right,
honestly. So yeah, I,
right.
I guess I guess that was one other thing I was kind of thinking about.
It's
Yeah.
such an interesting question,
Yeah.
right? It's yeah, when did chronic pain in humans start? You know, like, and certainly, I mean, where did I read this? Now I'm not gonna remember. Some place in like some mind body thing I read
Yeah.
about like it was like different instances of chronic pain and chronic symptoms documented throughout history.
Uh,
And there are a lot. If you're looking, there's examples of TMS and neuroplastic
mhm.
pain and like I don't like medieval writings and like maybe like ancient Egypt. I mean, I'm just sort of giving random
Yeah, yeah,
examples, but
yeah.
it was like you see accounts of this kind of stuff or people who have like whatever illnesses caused by their emotional afflictions. You see it in different historical accounts, but I wonder when did it start, you know? I have no idea. I wonder.
Yeah, 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 yeah. No, it is interesting. I also remember I had a dream very recently. I don't remember the exact specifics of the dream, but I actually remember like in my dream, and I'm not, of course, like nothing physically is happening to me. But there was like some bird that was like having its claws like go into me like this. And I actually
Mm.
felt it, like felt as if claws were like digging deep into my shoulder and it was painful. And I'm like, and then I woke up and I'm like, whoa, like wow, like the brain absolutely can generate pain. Like that was like because it's in my dream. I'm not. There's no actual bird. There's nothing. It just and it felt like the way my mind constructs like my body in that sense, like the mental model it has, it's generating pain in that spot. And I'm like, oh wow, like I've never felt like the realness of like how pain is generated by the mind it more so than in that dream. So I'm like even more convinced now.
No, that's a
Yeah.
great story. I've never thought of that before, but that is a great point and a great story. And for people listening, yeah, how many of you have had dreams where you have been in pain in the dream,
Yeah.
and then you wake up and you're just lying in bed and there's no bird on your shoulder clawing into you? Like that's some good proof right there. That's good.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Another thing, my exercise my coach did, when I did a consult with him before I even got started, because of course I'm still skeptical.
Right.
I'm still
Right.
this is extremely. It took like a year and a half for me to finally like say, okay, I'm willing to somewhat explore this and see what happens. I'm
Yeah.
still not convinced until I actually experience it, but it took me a very, very long time. And he basically gave me the exercise because I told him, oh, my like legs hurt when I run. So he said, like, why don't you sit down, close your eyes, and visualize yourself running? And I did. And then I noticed my legs started hurting. I was sitting down. I was not doing anything. And I noticed like my legs were hurting. He's like, see, there you go. Your brain just generated pain right there. I'm like, oh, oh damn.
Yeah, people listening, give it a try.
Yeah.
Again, I mean, again, I'm coming back to question your triggers. You know, you think your trigger is running. What if it's not the running? You
Yeah.
know, like and certainly the trigger there may be the fear. It may be the fear
Yeah.
of running. You know, like you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's not necessarily the running. So yes,
Yes.
question your triggers. Try this. Try that out.
Yeah.
Um,
Most of
Go
the
ahead.
time, I've found now that it's not the activity itself that's like where I feel like preemptive pain. It's like the fear, anxiety, like, am I going to be able to do this activity to the degree that I want to be able to do it at? Especially like lifting, you do a set at a certain weight last time, and you're like, and you want to either increase the weight or keep it the same because you feel you've gone down. You're like, oh, I have failed.
Mhm.
I have failed at life. I did not
Mhm.
able to do the same weight I was able to do last time. So there's
Mhm.
that fear of like, oh, I must keep progressing. At least for me, that's something. So I completely agree with you that I feel the pain I feel is mostly driven by the emotion associated with like the thought of doing the activity.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Totally. Totally. And I'm sure that applies to everybody listening as well, because that's unless the activity is like stabbing yourself in the side or whatever, like then that's probably going to cause some pain. But if you're doing like regular human activities that you love
Yeah.
to do, yeah, it's the TMS and the neuroplasticity that's causing the pain.
Yeah.
That's what's happening.
I would say like the best thing to do is find an issue that you're experiencing and like find people who are experiencing similar issues and hear their story. Cause like for me, if people don't resonate with the athletic side of the story, they may listen to your podcast and might be like, ah, it worked for him. It probably won't work for me, and like that's the same mentality I had because everyone I heard had like chronic pain from like completely different parts of their body for completely different reasons. None of the people I heard my wife was talking to in terms of, client therapist relationship was trying to become an athlete. They were just trying to like live their life day to day. It was more extreme circumstances. A visualization that came to mind is like very old people who like, through age have like lost a lot of their functionality. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not there yet. Like, it probably doesn't
Right,
apply to
right. Like,
me, kind of a thing. Yeah.
right, like, I'm a young athlete who is injured, or
Yeah.
I have something wrong with me, so I can't operate at peak performance. This isn't me, but it is. That's the thing,
Yeah.
and if that's you listening too,
Mm.
welcome. Welcome
Yeah.
to the club. You're in.
Yeah, 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 yeah. It took me a really long time to like, to finally have this sink in because it just felt so bizarre. Like it sounded like a really kooky story. Like, what the hell are you talking about?
Right, right,
Yeah,
and yet here we are. It is true. It
yeah,
is
yeah,
true.
yeah, yeah. I would just add that one thing is like if you start with certain scientific facts, like one indisputable fact that whether you're the hardest science uh you know uh person ever is that pain is absolutely generated by the brain. You start with that. Like that is indisputable from a scientific point of view. There's no part of your brain that's solely responsible for pain, which tells me like that it's hard to pinpoint what exactly is pain. It's not like there's one pain pathway, for instance. So if you start with all those things, you can maybe get yourself part of the way there to convincing yourself that, yeah, my brain or my mind does have a lot to do with generating pain. Anyway,
Yeah.
that's just me throwing out there to
Yeah, no,
skeptics.
that's so helpful. And someday, I mean, I think you're so right. It's unfortunate
Mhm,
that like, um, the scientific world has not really picked up on this
mhm,
because like science is all about like the pursuit of truth and
mhm,
discovering more about the world and the universe and the body and everything.
mhm.
And here the field is like really um denying like all the I'm thinking of, like, the Boulder back pain study.
Yeah.
It's one tiny example
Mhm.
of, like, where the field of scientific inquiry has shown that this stuff works.
Yeah.
There will be more of that as time goes on because it does work. So
Mhm,
it's like, it will happen. Like, if you use the scientific method properly,
mhm,
you discover truth. So,
mhm,
like, more of this will happen, but it's like, yeah, it's like we're really deeply not there yet, and that
mhm.
sucks.
Well, okay, I have a small correction to add to your statement. Science
Please.
is the pursuit of truth unless there's a financial motive attached to it. Then it's the pursuit of more money. I mean, because
Yeah.
well, I mean,
Good
this
point,
actually
good point.
applies to all forms of science because at the end of the day, you need money to run studies. You need money to do this. And that, like, I'm talking mostly even science that's not directly like financial. Like, medicine is absolutely 100% connected to financial pharmaceuticals and stuff like that. You take fields of physics too. They will be, the way you write grants to do research has to be written in a very specific language because funding is like something everybody's after in science and whatnot. So you have to write studies in a very specific language, looking for a very specific type of effect that's like, that can be promoted in journals and like publications and
Right,
mainstream media and all that stuff. And especially with medicine, I truly believe the opponent of mind body is like essentially the whole mindset that people have of like, I want to take a quick pill to fix everything. And the pharmaceutical companies who are selling that whole story of like, oh, just keep taking this pill, very little effort. You don't have to touch any of the stuff that you're currently feeling or any of the stuff that's going
right,
on with you, and you'll be totally fine. The problem is that this is actually hard work. We haven't even touched upon like doing the work to be able to get to this greater point of freedom is hard work. You're going to be touching a lot
yeah,
of stuff that's like very ugly and very like unpleasant and just not
mhm,
great. But I think of it kind of like the way I was sort of thinking about it with like not just with this form of therapy, with other forms of therapy is like if you have experienced traumas or you experience like certain adversities and there's a certain way you're living your life, it's kind of like you have these like injuries, emotional injuries on your body, and you're just
Yeah.
walking around with life with a limp or like, unable to move things. And therapy is that way of like, with a really good therapist, of course, because it's always it's very subjective. Most therapists aren't great for one person. Maybe there's a specific therapist, so that's up to individual judgment. But if therapy is done the way that I envision it done, it's basically where like they essentially work all those knots out. And it's highly uncomfortable because it's like, when you go see a physical therapist and they give you that deep tissue massage, it's not comfortable at all. It's not
Right.
pleasant, but then you feel really good afterward. Let's say you get not even a physical therapist, let's say normal deep tissue massage. You feel great afterward, but during it's like, oh damn, this
Right.
yeah,
Right.
that's
Right.
kind of how I would describe it. Yeah.
Yeah, I love what you're saying. I love what you're saying.
Mhm,
And the way that money,
mhm,
it's like, and I so agree with what you're saying. Like, it's both money, cloud scientific inquiry, obviously,
mhm,
and also like just like people's limited mindset and
mhm,
desire for ease, desire for just like a pill. Like, why would someone bother with a quote unquote intervention or a treatment that
mhm,
involves like digging up your emotions and having
mhm.
to befriend your emotions and having to befriend parts of yourself that you don't like or parts of yourself that you wish you could take a pill and make go away.
Yeah,
And someone tells you you can. So you're like, awesome.
yeah,
Let me spend a ton of money and take that pill. And then you take it and it doesn't work. And
yeah,
then you've spent the money and you're back where you started. Um, so much needs to change. But here we are, here we
yeah.
are. Any final words before we are done for today?
I would just say to people listening who are very skeptical, like how I was, what maybe the first step what you could do is try a small tweak, very small tweak in like your current ritual that you feel you need to have in order to function or whatever you do, like whether it's stretching or if there's something else that you're doing, make a tiny tweaking modification, just see what happens. And if nothing much changes, try another tweak to move in that direction of reducing dependency on things. I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, it's reducing dependency on things. It's not that stretching or foam rolling is bad. By no means do I mean to demonize that. It's more of that getting rid of the feeling that I have to do this. Like I must do this in order to function. If you feel like foam rolling or stretching just so because it feels good and you're just kind of doing it like once in a while, more power to you. Epsom salt bath, more power to you, whatever. But if you feel like, oh, I must do this, otherwise I'm going to be injured, I'm basically not just not gonna function properly, then that becomes a dependence. And I think the goal is to remove as many dependencies as possible so you experience a freedom in that sense. And I say go very slow and steady because you have your whole life to do this. So like you don't have to do everything day one in that sense. Yeah, and
Yeah,
really have nothing to lose, honestly. Nothing to lose by doing
yeah.
this. Yeah.
Yeah. Question your rituals. Question all your coping behaviors. I love it. I think it's so good. And let me just say to
Mm.
like build a momentum for exactly what you're saying. Christina Sarno Horner, I
Yes.
work for her part-time for her
Mhm,
practice, and she has an intake form of like these are the questions to ask the
mhm,
client or the things to be like, thinking about. Literally on the list of questions, it's like, what do you think about pain? What do you know about TMS? What do you know about
mhm.
neuroplasticity? Like stuff like your family history, all that. And near the bottom is like, what are all the things you're doing in your life and what can you cut out? And there's like, and then underneath that, like, there's a couple more like, no, but like, really, what can you cut out? And until I saw that intake form, I never really thought of that, but it's exactly what you're saying. So I'm like, you're not alone in understanding that, like, this is part of the healing is like letting that shit go.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you
Yeah.
so, so, so much for coming on the podcast. I'm
Of
sure this is
course.
incredibly helpful to a
Yeah.
lot of people. And hope to see you again next year, if not sooner.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. No, it's been a pleasure, Sean. Really, really appreciate you having me on. And yeah, very much enjoyed this.
Absolutely. Cool. 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 And for everybody listening, this has been the Mind Body Medicine for Chronic Pain podcast, and I will talk to you next week.